Hello, possums. It must be a very weird 4th of July for you guys. I feel for you. We're even a bit preoccupied with it here in Australia, even though it's the 5th now for us. We're still, those of us that follow everything that's happening do feel for you. You poor things. But here's the thing, I thought I can't just make an ordinary video today. And many of you have asked me over the months, is this going to lead to civil war? Is there going to be another American Revolution? And I've sort of battered it away in a sense. So, let's just see what happens with this development and that development. And now you've got Musk threatening to form another party. Now, this is interesting in all sorts of ways because you have these two grotesque, immature, soulless man babies at war with each other. And I think it's a bit of a case of your enemy's enemy is your friend. So, of course, you can't help but take a bit of shady delight in some of the things that Elon is spitting out about the Yeti. We're mortal, let's face it, we do. But the last thing America needs is an Elon Musk America party. Okay, so oh, God preserve us from an Elon party. And what concerns me is, even though, as we speak, just about everyone hates Elon, people have very short memories. He can promise them the world. He's mouthing things like, we need a party for the people. What would Elon Musk know about the people? He's a Nepo baby. The Yeti's a Nepo baby. They've never spent a quarter of an hour in the real world. What the fuck would he know about the people? Screws his workers into the ground and then boasts about it. He's an extraordinarily gifted brander like the Yeti, but a really bad businessman. When you scratch the surface, he's sabotaged his own businesses. Uh, Twitter was an international success of the first order. He's killed it. He's still got millions of followers, but financially, it's in the gutter. His rockets fall out of the sky, causing environmental damage. His board of directors want him out of the business. He is just truly disgusting. He's the world's worst father. And I think if you multiply that title by every child, he's 14 times the worst father. No, it mustn't happen, please. No. But people work against their own interests at all times. It's extraordinary to watch. So, I don't want this to be doom and gloom. I want this to be a clear-eyed look at what's happening down the road because things surely cannot limp on like they were, and the Dems haven't got the answers. Okay, let me digress before we start. So, I was talking about the possibility of Gavin Newsom last time, and I invited you to comment, and many of you thought he would be a good candidate, but also a lot of you thought no. Um, and I'd like to revisit that for a minute before we move on. So, no, maybe I should do this and then come back to Gavin. Okay, let's dive in here. I want to do a substantial read. Is this going to evolve into a civil war scenario or another revolution? The revolution. It's funny, when we read about revolutions in history, we tend to romanticize them and the revolution, and after that, the people were free. But if you were living through that revolution, it's tremendously confronting. People had to take risks, big personal risk to be part of the front line. And then after the event, everyone reinvents themselves as being on the side of the winners. There's a bit of human nature in that too. Okay, so let's have a look. The US, Civil War and or revolution, because they're different things. They're different things. Let's see what the cards have to say, and I'll use a mix. I'll shuffle these ready to go. So for me, Civil War conjures up a sort of longer term hostilities between rival identities, national identities. A revolution tends to, they still take a few years, but they tend to have more of a single cause, if you like, um, that people fight for. So let's just see what the cards have to offer. Big topic, big, big, big topic. Now, don't worry if you can't see all the cards because I will hold them up as I talk about them. I'm very pleased the Sun card came out at all. Yeah, that is a bit of good news. Let me give these an extra. Oh, what fell out? Economic challenge. Well, yes. Okay, and I'll get these ready to go. Now, the Sun is a fabulous card. I mean, just look at the energy in this card. There's a courage and a fearlessness to the child on the horse, on the galloping horse. There's an exuberance there. But let's look at that. So this child is completely fearless. But here's the thing about courage. If you're not afraid, it doesn't take courage. Okay, so you just think back to when you were young kids jumping out of the tallest tree or jumping off the jetty or whatever. If that didn't hold any fear for you, you didn't need courage. It was those kids who were scared stiff and who still did it, who had courage, right? I think that analogy is important here. There's a need for fearlessness. What the sun also does is shine light on all the horrific behind the scenes dealing. So I am thrilled the sun card has come out, but I'm sure there'll be complications, but just keep that in mind. The Empress. Now, this could be Russia, and both the Yeti and the Muskrat have Russian connections, not just with Putin, who they may be having falling out with, but also with the oligarchs. And the oligarchs aren't happy. Why? Because they're not making money. You need a stable environment in order to be able to rip off that government. Right? So the oligarchs who are dotted all over the world, you just go to Bali or Cyprus or name another 15 countries, and there they are, the Russian oligarchs. Okay, so I think they've turned up in this. Oh, which horse would Russia back? Interesting. I just heard which horse would Russia back. Very interesting. These are very emotional times. Now, it's also aces are big new energy, new emotions. So it's like people are being asked to convert their pain and their fear into other emotions. Why it's about conversion is the magician is the card of alchemy. Now, in the most basic way, the magician can be at its lowest. It can be manipulation, trickery, and nastiness, and no one's better than the magician at that. all the way to its highest level for the greater good and everything in between. Right. And this card is in between. It's in between all this emotion and people feeling lost and left out. This concerns me because I think it could be the muskrat playing on people's fears, playing on people's emotions, and he's still got a massive platform to do that. Now we have the King of Wands. So with this King of Wands, quite partial to the good life, you'd have to say, and has a lot of power. So it's which one has the biggest stick, so to speak. Okay. So I think this has come back to the feud, which has now spilled over into a war in itself. Now, between these two men, it's like I was asking about will there be a civil war? And it's sort of giving me the answer it'll be between these two. It'll be between these two first, then we'll see. So, although MAGA does not like, well, they don't like anyone who isn't their cult leader. They don't like Elon. He tried to buy the Wisconsin election, failed, and he threatened outright to any of the Republicans who voted against that dreadful bill, he'll come after them. This used to be behind the scenes. Powerful, wealthy people used to lobby behind the scenes. He just put it all out there. I can buy and sell this government. Really, Elon. So my vibe is he is hit. Look, both these men with their substance abuse issues, sorry, YouTube entertainment, should they really be the ones deciding the fate of America? Right? So let's see what the other cards say, because I'm going to persist with this. So often with tarot, as I've explained on other occasions, you ask a question and it gives you the background to the question. You have to pull more cards. Economic challenge. Now, here's where the distortion comes in. Let's just talk this scenario through. As the price of everything goes up, that is going to make the Yeti less popular. He got in allegedly bringing the price of groceries. Funny old-fashioned word, he said, groceries. How out of touch are these Nepo babies, right? That's the economic challenge that Trump is looking at. It's different for Elon because he can milk that. And people, the majority of people in most Western democracies still harbor this strange ideal, not so much in Europe, I shouldn't say that, but certainly it's still a thing in Australia, still a thing in the UK a bit, where businessmen would be good at running governments. No, because governments are not businesses. They're spectacularly bad at running government. But the muskrat could milk this, the economic challenge. Trump could still destroy him. So it's still all up in the air. Let's look at these other cards. Let me pull you down. Let's look at this. Lacking readiness, disappointing results, shadow operation. To me, these cards are really speaking. Lacking readiness. I think this is actually, again, Elon. Disappointing results and a shadow operation. So be prepared. I think he is going to go forward with the party, even if he has to put other people in there. I don't think it'll be a massive success in itself, but it's enough to muddy the waters. And the current Dems at top level, and I always make that distinction. I am hypercritical of the Dem leadership. I am full of hope and admiration for the next tier down, the Jasmine Crockett's, the Katie Porters, the Pete Buttigieg's, the rest who are brilliant and up to the task, but are kept on a very short leash. So he's going to go for it. Let's go again. Let's ask, what shape would a civil war take in modern America? Let's have a look at that question. What would it look like? Oh my God. Okay. Let's have a look. Because then I want to ask the revolution question separately. What would the shape be of a civil war? Would this be states pulling away? What would it look like? Oh, the sun card came again. Might not be the worst idea. Okay. What I will say here too is countries only improve radically and take a whole new reinvention of a place after some pain is incurred. This is people thinking about it. This is people thinking, for example, if California was, I'm not saying California is going to secede. I don't think that's the answer in itself. But people are thinking about ways out. They're seeking a rule of law. Otherwise, you may as well be on the front line in Afghanistan or post-collapse Syria or anywhere else. Like, can you imagine if Iran announced it was going to keep its political prisoners in a concentration camp with a moat with hungry alligators in it? The world would condemn this as barbaric, as impossible to contemplate, going back to the Dark Ages. And a first world country is doing. So people are desperate for the rule of law. People feel they have their hands tied. But let me remind you, Eight of Swords, if this figure can engage with the water here, you don't win a civil war or the hearts and minds with guns alone. I don't think this will be an armed conflict. This is about the intangible. This is about fundamentalist Christianity that bathes in cruelty, that advocates inhumane treatment of people versus you guys, the light, which versus the intangibles, people who stand up for values, overused word, under represented concept, standing up for what's right. If this figure can engage in a higher spirituality almost, you can get out of the bonds and take off the blindfold. As we go forward, things are happening very, 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 very quickly and on multiple fronts. But look at this. It's everything I was just saying about courage. Courage is an intangible. It's one of the things we need. Mhm. So I think it will be a real departure from what's gone before. Now let's ask about revolution. Now, so to me, and let me know your opinion and your sort of feel on this. To me, a civil war would look like blue states say refusing to hand in their federal tax because every state's now been told you've got to deal with your own disaster relief, you've got to deal with your own hospitals, you've got to deal with your own schools. So it would be different states working out where they stand, and there could be a real schism between states. It already exists, but it could be formalized and more magnified. A revolution, on the other hand, could be imagine MAGA waking up. Imagine. Huh? Oh, well, the hospital's just closed down and, we can't afford medicine. And my 17-year-old couldn't afford an asthma spray and he's going to be buried next Tuesday. Real things happening to people, not being able to replace the car with another piece of junk, even just not being able to function. It's possible MAGA could wake up. Be very interesting how they handle the white looters if it comes to that, right? Be fascinating to watch. So it could be a revolution where more people realize they have in common than apart. People could actually question the caca they've had thrown down their throats because they wanted to hear it. Right. So let's have a look now at revolution. So I'm going to shuffle these oracle cards first so they're ready to go. And that could be a new dawn for America. Remember that sun card. A revolution might not be the worst thing, but there's a lot of water under the bridge between now and then for people to wake up and realize if they band together, they will not tolerate this wealth disparity. And now I'm thinking that's the difference. Civil war, everyone stressed, everyone freaking out, everyone looking after their own, hunkering down, going inward. A revolution is people going, it's taken me 3 generations to realize that actually we're being shafted by the capitalists. Imagine, imagine. Nothing's off the table at this stage. So, revolution. Ha ha. Let's see. Oh, love that. Love it. Okay. Dream cards for that question. It might be my partiality coming into play here. It might, I hope I haven't done it. But as you know, with Gavin Newsom's cards last video that weren't marvelous, if the cards aren't marvelous, I tell you they're not marvelous. You know, these are really good for a revolution. Just saying. Look at this. First of all, the High Priestess. Now, in political readings, she's got a bad rap over the years. We've tend to say secret agendas. We tend to dismiss her. She is the most powerful aspiration of feminine wisdom and knowledge. And if you look at all this stuff that's been happening over the last 8 years, 5 years, 2 years, it's toxic masculinity. And that's why we need strong men in the thing, but not strong men at the expense of having a brain. It's about men like Tim Waltz, who represent the best of masculinity, of the Pete Buttigieg's, the Eric Swalwell's, right? I include them in this. But the High Priestess also represents our collective subconscious. Remember, I was just talking a few minutes ago with that Eight of Swords. If you can tap into that other energy. So this is really interesting to me. Not only that, major arcana, out of 5 cards, 3 are majors. This is the one that matters. So the US, depending on, with the astrology, whether it's Western or Vedic, big change is coming. Now, the Western astrologers tend to be more optimistic. We're going into the age of Aquarius. And I believe we're heading there. I do not believe we're in it. I think I agree with the Vedics in the sense that we're still in the tail end of this horror, at least through till next year and through next year. Then I think we're going to start to see some change. Just to support that, I want to share a quote with you because the rest of these cards are quite positive. Now, some of you who've been to college may have heard of Gramsci. He was the Italian lefty anarchist who was jailed by the fascists. He produced a series of writings called the Prison Notebooks. And one of the podcasters just quoted some Gramsci last night, and he said he was living in that time of real oppression in Italy. And he said, the old world has died, the new world is struggling to be born, and we are in the time of the monsters. Isn't that interesting? And it echoes for me now. Let me know what you think about that quote. We can't put the genie back in the bottle, which is what the problem is with Dem leadership. Oh, well, we'll just get in and we've got our band-aids. In fact, we've got a whole first aid kit. It'll be fine. No, it won't be fine because the problem is the wealth disparity that is not addressed by the conventional Dems. Things are much better, don't misunderstand me, of course, under there in terms of women's rights and a thousand ways things are better under the Dems, but the solutions don't get looked at because they're too deep and they won't go there. So after that massive digression, it's time. The US, many people have talked about the the Pluto return for the US, going back to the time when it had to create an identity out of um, very troubled times. The problem for the US is, has it learnt anything as a collective? And the country that was built on stolen land from Indigenous people, the blood and the sweat of slavery, so, and the real hardship of the early immigrants and so forth, glossed over. Hollywood's left it behind, so most Americans have never revisited the problems. And it's like an individual, if you expand it out to a country, if you do not look at the problems, you can't solve them. So Happy Days displacement is not going to cut it. This is deep, deep. But I think things, I really believe, have to get this bad to have a really big turn of the wheel. And in this figure, the wheel is going up. It needs to turn. Painful as that might be, the wheel needs to turn for it to get better. The strength card, guys, you can do this. Don't let them paralyze you. Don't let them sap your soul. Do not let that happen. You are stronger than you realize. Now, also in terms of numbers, if you think, another digression, let's say roughly thirds, a third of the country voted MAGA, a third voted Dem, and probably more, and a third couldn't be asked voting. Okay, so they're as responsible as MAGA for this nightmare. Now, don't tell me they're happy. Oh, I didn't vote. Who cares? It's also, they're beginning to realize, gulp, I blew this major fuck up. I hope they're thinking in that way, at least half of that third. Okay, MAGA have to be chipping away at the edges as every time they go to the store, it costs more. It has to be eroding somewhere. The MAGA macho boys weren't happy with the Iranian bombing. Surprisingly, they weren't going, no. And now Joe Rogan has turned and actually called Trump insane on his podcast, or at least his policies is insane. That's important. You don't have to like him. The point is, it's eroding. So, in other words, your cohort of thinking, sentient people who fundamentally have the human role of compassion in your life, you're stronger than you realize. Stronger than you realize. And you're getting angry. Anger is the best antidote to fear. It's the best antidote to powerlessness, right? Need to get a bit angry. Now, some of you, I'm sure, are already very angry, but the question then becomes, where do I put it? How do you focus it? Join each other, find each other in the Twitterverse. Look at this. Social media, look at the success of Midas Touch, Legal AF, Jack Cocciarella, the I've Had It women, millions of views. Excuse me. So this is important to find each other and to work together. So I think we're at the beginning of an American revolution. So all the things that sounded great, land of the free, home of the brave, all that, which were actually never the case, because if you don't have universal health care, you are not free. And even if you have the best insurance in the world, that means you might be all right at the expense of everyone else. That is not a happy place. That's a relief place. Thank God I've got insurance. But it's not where a first world country should be at all. That's why you pay taxes, is to get health care. What do they do with American taxes? They're not, I don't know what they do with it, but, and so I think my takeaway for this is this card, it's time. So be part of the change you want to see, intrepid viewers. Be part of that change. Please don't hunker down and wait for it to blow over. I understand that impulse, and you can even do that to some extent. That's survival. But try and make sure that every week you're engaged somewhere with an organization that is somehow making a difference. And please let me know what you're doing, what you're thinking of, what are the processes? I want to know because I love our community. And one last thing, tomorrow, my tomorrow, your Sunday, um, I'll be on with Erica Robinson in the Company of Cards, and I'm sure we'll have plenty to talk about. So I'll see you soon. Please don't think this is a downer. I think it's important to absorb the shock, find ways to keep yourself calm and healthy and moving forward, operate in your community as best you can or your online community, and start planning the revolution. Bless. Okay. Ciao for now. Let me know what you think. Bye.